Earlier this week, I put a video out on Instagram asking people to ask me their questions. What is it you want to know about property, about me, about deals? What is it that you want to know? So I've got some of the questions here. I'm going to go through them right now. If anyone has anything else they want to know, then please drop me a DM or drop a comment below on this video. I'm more than happy to help. So without further ado, the first question is, how to improve the EPC rating on a house, and does it increase the value? So the answer is yes, it does increase the value, but not necessarily as much as you're going to pay for it. For example, insulation in a loft can cost you quite a large sum of money, into the 4-figure kind of range. The likelihood is you're not going to start to see that come back on your end value of your house. That being said, if you go all out and you go for a full eco home that's really sort of well made, complete carbon neutral, etc., you can ask more for that because it's a specialist product. Typically with the kind of deals that we're doing with our buy refurb refinance houses or our HMOs, we are not looking to increase the EPC that much. We need to make sure it is efficient as a house and it passes all the standards that you need to rent it out, but we're not going to go over and above on our refurb costs just to get the house a little bit more efficient, because in the long run, the return on investment versus the additional cost that you'll spend to make it more efficient, and then the extra money that you'll get or the saving you'll make on the utility cost isn't really that high. And a lot of landlords will actually use things like Hive to kind of manage the temperature in the house and keep things, efficient, make sure the tenants aren't using too much anyway. And personally, I think that is a better way of saving your costs and making sure you get a little bit more cash flow from those deals. So it does, but to be honest with you, it's not the kind of thing that we look to do that much, but it is something you definitely want to consider, especially if you're doing a slightly larger house or a slightly nicer house. How can you make it that little bit more efficient? And things you can do is basically just insulation are the main things. Loft insulation, insulation on the walls, external insulation. You can add new boilers, you can put new windows in, new doors in, you can put more efficient appliances in. All these kind of things will help with it. If you pull up an EPC for any house, it'll give you some recommendations for things that you can do to make them more efficient. So that's the first question. Thank you so much for writing and asking that one. The second one, at what age did you sell your first package deal at? I was 20 years old when I sold my first package deal. I actually sold 2 in one go. They were both HMOs. One was a 4-bed, one was a 5-bed, and they were based in Rotherham, which at the time was a fantastic little rental market for HMOs, and those houses are still performing really, really well to this day. Really, really pleased with those deals. Actually, they came out really, really well. But I was 20 years old when I sold my first one. Next question, best way to find right management company for single lets when you're not in the local area? Well, this really comes down to doing what I said in previous videos, is you need to get on the phone with people. You need to pick up the phone to local agents. If you Google letting agent and then the area that you're looking to work in, and then just start ringing people up, find out how much they know about the markets, how much they know about what it's like to be a landlord and what the tenant demand looks like. Ask them what they do to vet their tenants, and then ring them again, but this time ring them as a tenant, or have someone else ring them, or ring other management companies and find out what it's like if you're a tenant speaking to these people. What do they come back with? What information do they come back with? Do they ask me a lot of questions, or do they not really care? These people are going to be working on your behalf. You need them to be kind, but also kind of a little bit salesy about getting your tenants in. You need them to be pushing to try and fill your house quickly. Are they trying to get you as a tenant viewing their houses? If they're not really that interested, then hey, I wouldn't be using them. So you're looking for people who vet the tenants well, but also people who are actively trying to fill the rooms in the houses they have on their books. Get on the phone with people, start having a conversation with them. The next question we've got is, how long did it take me to get my first deal or to see any significant progress? I first decided I wanted to get into property in November of 2017, and I sold my first deal in September 2018. I did my training in May to June period of 2018, so it took me almost a year from when I decided to get into property to do my first deal, and it took me about 4 months, 3-4 months after I started training to do my first deal. In that time, I'd built up connections with investors and that kind of stuff, and I'd learned how to do things, and in my mind, I was making progress because I had a better understanding of what it was I was doing. But you're looking at 3-4 months before I sold my first deal, and that was obviously the one that I sold when I was 20 years old. Next question we've got is how to learn about the contracts and securities for investor finance. Well, there's a number of different ways you can do this. One obviously is through paid training, having conversations with people like myself. They'll answer those kind of questions for you. But the 2 ways that I learn is, number 1 is by speaking to solicitors. Property solicitors do this kind of thing day in, day out for people. There's always a contract of some sort. Ask them and say, look, I'm thinking about doing this as a joint venture. If I was your client, what would you recommend I offer to my investor as a reasonable form of security, a reasonable way of tying everything up and making things legal? They'll kind of go through all the different options that you have available to you, obviously what it'll cost you as well, and they'll advise you on the different risks associated with that for yourself and indeed for the investor. The other thing I do is have conversations with investors who want to lend money. Find out what they want. Just ask them, okay, so if you put money into this deal and you get this return, do you want any security? If so, what would you like to see in this deal? be open about it, especially if you haven't done a deal like this before. They're gonna know that you're not hugely experienced anyway. That's not a problem. Just because you don't have experience doesn't mean you can't be right and your deal doesn't stack. Like, your deal can still be amazing. So use that. But speak to your investor, ask them what they would like to do. And the final thing I want to add to this is actually there's a book that myself, Anthony, and Hannah Mills wrote around all the compliance around joint ventures and deal sourcing and rent to rents. And you can get that book on Amazon. There's a link below in the description. You can click and it'll take you through to it. And in that book, we detail all the different types of contracts and stuff that you use with joint ventures and raising finance and selling deals and so on and so forth. Get that book, have a look through it. That'll probably answer your question in a little bit more detail. Alternatively, get on the phone with the solicitor and ask them what they would do. Next question we've got is, will you lend us a tenner? I'll be more than happy to lend you a tenner. What's my return on investment? Whenever you're thinking about people lending you money, no matter how much it is, you've got to make sure there's always an ROI in it for you there. So yeah, drop me a DM and let me know what ROI you're going to offer. Have I ever done boxing? Now, this is a cool one. No, I haven't. I've never done boxing. A couple of my mates have done boxing when they were at uni, but I've never done it. Hey, let me know what you're thinking. How did the property in Burnley go on Fairview Road? Think you beat me to that one. We beat a lot of people to that one. That was a fun one. That was one of the few bidding wars we've actually got involved in. I'm really pleased we got it for a price that we were happy with. The property's going well. It's very much in the middle of refurb. There'll be some updates coming out soon. We've got some big plans for this house. It's gonna look absolutely stunning. So stay tuned and I'll make sure we get a video out to you in the next couple of weeks. How do you find direct-to-vendor deals? Finding a deal direct to vendor means you have to go direct to vendor, which means you can't look at any sort of marketplace. So immediately you need to rule out things like Zoopla, you need to rule out Rightmove. Some of the best places I find are OpenRent, because the landlords who put the houses up there, you can contact directly and they will speak to you. Same with Gumtree. But to be honest with you, the most deals that we get at a direct to vendor tend to be development sites, and we're getting that by finding the site, using Google Maps and other resources that we have, and then simply sending letters to people. At the moment, in this day and age, social media is everything. Everyone does everything on social media, which means that when you get something from one of the old school methods, like an email or a phone call or a text message or a letter or some advertising, it works because people don't see it very often. And these old school, almost forgotten methods are still very, very good. So we send a lot of letters. Letters work really, really well for us. Otherwise, you can use things like Gumtree and OpenRent, and you can help to systemize that as well, especially with the use of VAs. So that is how we find direct-to-vendor deals. If I had to start all over again from scratch, would you do anything differently? Yeah, if I'm honest with you, I would. Deal sourcing has been phenomenal for me, and it's made me a lot of money, and it's built up a lot of networks and connections, and I've got power teams and I've got staff, and it's absolutely phenomenal. And I will never stop deal sourcing until the day I die. However, if I was starting out all over again, I'd look to do more joint ventures as fast as I possibly could. You see, deal sourcing is great. You build up sums of cash, you've got an income stream, you learn how to do everything. But if you're not buying your own houses and you're not building up capital or borrowing capital to do your own deals, then your own portfolio is going to take a little bit longer to build up. And for me, what I should have been doing on the first year was actively looking to borrow money from people, raise finance, buy houses, rent them out, do buy refurbs, do flips, do HMOs, whatever it might be. I need to do more joint ventures. I'd really recommend to people that you do joint ventures. Like now, the stuff that we're doing, all our developments that we do, my own portfolio, everything is built on the back of joint ventures, and they are phenomenal, phenomenal deals. So I would say, if you're looking to start out, don't negate the idea of doing a joint venture on a deal with someone, borrowing some money from someone, or doing a profit split, something like that. If I was starting all over again, I'd definitely be putting more of a focus on that than I did. Next question we've got is, how did I get started, and what was the best piece of advice you received when starting out? I got started because I saw a guy called Samuel Leeds who was teaching about property and told me about how great investing in property is, and then I went and paid for training, and I learned what I had to do. I learned about the different strategies. I learned the processes. I learned how to network, how to sell, how to market, so on and so forth, and then learned on the job building it up. I got started by paying for training, and honestly, it was the best decision I ever made. There's a link below to my Winners on a Wednesday, way back when, for when I first started out, and some of the achievements I've made at that point, and you can hear more about my story from there. The best piece of advice I ever got was probably, sales is seriously important, and you need to learn how to do it. Understanding how to convince people and persuade people to go ahead with something when it's in their interest. You know, not everybody wants to take the leap, even if something is perfect for them. And sometimes you need to help people give that. So for me, learning about sales was probably the single most important thing that I ever learned, and being able to utilize that with the marketing skills and learning how to network with people meant that I was able to start selling deals on a regular basis, which is what transformed my business for me. So I'd say, definitely sales, best piece of advice I was ever given when I started out. Next question is, do I need a mentor? Fear of failing is holding me back. Fear of failure holds a lot of people back. And you know, it's one of these things where it's different from every person as to what it is you need to overcome this. Before you start paying for a mentor, you need to understand why you want one and the gaps that you have. There's a difference between training and mentoring. Training is getting the information you need, understanding the strategies, understanding the process that you go through, how to network, how to find people. It's the how behind everything. Mentoring is far more personal. It's more about working with the individual to realize their goals, come up with an idea of what their dream actually looks like, and then putting a route and a plan together about how you're going to get there. The training then tells you the specifics of the how on that journey. You need both. And before you get a mentor, I think it's really important that you have the training, because most mentors, you're going to pay more for mentoring on average versus training. And most mentors, their time is valuable. And if you've got someone like that on your side, you want to be utilizing that as best as you possibly can. And if you're asking the individual questions that you would when you start out, you're wasting your money, because you could have just paid less and got trained on that, and then had the mentor help you to iron out that process, make it a little bit smoother, help you to get that to that next stage from wherever you are, fill in those gaps, keep you accountable and keep you encouraged. You know, that's what you want a mentor for. So do you need a mentor? Honestly, I do not know you well enough to say that, but I would say if you have a basic understanding of everything, then yeah, get a mentor if you can, and if it's right for you. But look for the right person who you really gel with, who you get on with. You're going to be spending a lot of time with these people. You're probably going to be doing it in person, or at least, over a lot of Zoom calls. You need to like them, and they need to understand you as a person to help you motivate you. If fear of failure is holding you back, that's a personal thing. That isn't just any old person can help you with that based on their knowledge of property. They've got to relate to you. You've got to have a relationship with them. So you might find actually within your existing network, your friends, your family, those who you are close to, are going to be able to help you with this. Ultimately, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to fail at something, and that's fine. You either win or you learn. For us, there's no such thing as failure in this game. There's going to be mistakes that you made. Some deals aren't going to go to plan. Some things just aren't going to work out. That's the nature of this business. That's the nature of an entrepreneur as well. Don't let getting a no stop you. And there's a book called Go for No that may well be helpful for you. So give that a check out. Hopefully that answers your question. Do I recommend remortgaging every 2 years on a 75% loan to value mortgage? This is a question around leveraging and what is suitable for you when you leverage. For me personally, I want to keep a 75, 80% leverage across my portfolio until my portfolio is £10 million worth of property, and then I'm going to look to deleverage and de-risk the entire thing as it goes up. This is just based on the rules of leveraging and the size of the market I'm going to be playing in. I don't want to have too much leverage at the higher values. So if you've got a large portfolio, I wouldn't be looking to remortgage all the time and keeping your loan to values high. You might want to sell off some of your houses anyway. You might want to just de-risk it and take your leverage down a bit. When you're first starting out, I would focus on doing as many deals as you possibly can. And if that means you've got to take 75% lending on one, 70 on another or whatever, then do it. And look at your leverage over your entire portfolio, not just on the individual houses. Is it worth doing it every 2 years? Well, if the rate is significantly better, then yes. But if you're going to pay any sort of early repayment charges, or you've got to add in the admin fees and the broker fees, you've got to consider, is it really worth doing for the fees and the time you're going to spend doing the refinance to save yourself 0.2% per annum in interest? Probably not. If the house has only gone up £2,000, you're going to spend more than £2,000 paying for valuations and broker fees anyway. So again, there's no point. Look at whether or not it's worth it. If your house has gone up a huge amount of money, then yes, I'd definitely be looking to take as much equity out as I could. If your rate is really high because it was your first mortgage and it sucked and you're 6%, and then you can refinance down to 2.8, then yeah, obviously I would do it. Look at the individual house in itself and the individual deal you want to do, and then look at your portfolio as a whole and weigh whether or not you want to increase or decrease your leverage based on just your natural tolerance to risk. That's a question for you, my friend. That is us for today. I want to thank you guys so much for sending in those questions. I really enjoyed going through those. Some of them were very, very interesting and some great entrepreneurial mindset thinking within all of this. If anyone needs anything or has any questions or want to know, then please drop me a message. I'd love to help. And if you want to know a little bit more about investing in property, how you can do this, how you can set up your own joint ventures, how you can sell your own deals and find your own leads, why not check out the Property Success Series that I released in January this year, where I literally go through everything, all the different strategies in property from A all the way through to Z, how you find the deal, how you finance it, whether you sell it or keep it for yourself, literally everything all in one place with no upsells. Click the link below if you want to have a look at that and get a little bit more education for yourself. I can't wait to be working with you. Until next time, take care.